fellow parent submitted a question to our Ask the Expert page, and we thought it would be a great opportunity to address the answer for everybody. Do you have any advice on a 2-year-old biting and hitting and does not care whatsoever that he gets in trouble? Just curious, I'm at my wit's end. First, we totally feel you. I have a 2-year-old and I understand how frustrating it can be to work through some of these totally normal 2-year-old behaviors. As behavior analysts, we don't look at the behavior itself necessarily. We are more interested in why the behavior is happening. Once we know why a behavior is happening, we can actually come up with a targeted strategy to address the behavior that doesn't just focus on punishing the behavior away. Truth number 1 is this: if behavior is happening, that means that it is somehow paying off for our kids. Whether that's intentional or unintentional, our kids are engaging in behavior because it works for them. When behavior stops working for us, we stop engaging in that behavior. If I picked up my water bottle to take a sip and the water was empty, and so I drink through the mouthpiece and no water comes up, there's only so many times I'm going to continue to reach for the water bottle and do that before figuring out something else to do. So once behavior stops paying off for us, or it stops producing the desired outcome, behavior just stops happening. So for our kids, when we know that their misbehavior is happening, we need to figure out why it's happening, or what's the function of their behavior. When we talk about getting our kids in trouble, I think what the parent meant was that she's probably trying to punish the behavior, meaning we're sending our kid to timeout, or we're talking to them or reprimanding them or telling them not to do that. What we know about consequences is that just because we may feel like it's a negative consequence, meaning my kid should respond to this reprimand, doesn't necessarily mean that that's the effect that our consequences actually have on the behavior. If you remember, like in elementary school, you always had that one class clown in class, right? And they were always getting in trouble. They were constantly being called out by the teacher, sent into the principal's office, but the kid kept doing it, right? Over and over and over again. So oftentimes, things like reprimands or punishments that we think that we're punishing the behavior are actually strengthening behavior. Because if kids aren't getting attention in other ways, when they get the attention in the form of a reprimand, that's actually better than not having any attention at all. So sometimes we think that we're effectively handling or getting our kids in trouble, and it's not a very effective consequence for our child's misbehavior. If you notice that often you're busy or you're doing something and you're not paying attention to your child, and then your child engages in a form of misbehavior and you have to go over there to address the misbehavior, you might start to notice that your kid's doing it more frequently. And that's because even though we are going and addressing the behavior, our kid has our attention. So even if it's negative attention in the form of reprimand or discussing the problem with them or telling them what not to do, they didn't have our attention before they engaged in the behavior, and then they engaged in the behavior and then they got our attention. So maybe they're continuing to engage in that behavior to get our attention. So back to figuring out why your child is engaging in these misbehaviors. First, the best way to do it is to sort of spend a couple of days jotting down every instance of the behavior. We have this great free digital download on the website that is a worksheet that you can use to fill out every single time that your child engages in the behavior of question. You write about what's going on right before the behavior happened, what the behavior was, and then what happened right after the behavior. So for example, if I'm in the grocery store and my child asks for candy and I tell her no, that's sort of what's happening right before the behavior happens. Then my child bites my arm, that's the behavior, and then what happened right after the behavior? I got frustrated and I told her no biting and I put the candy in the cart because I didn't want to have a meltdown in the grocery store. So after you plot out a few occurrences, you may start to see a pattern emerge in that third box, the what's happening after the behavior occurs. And this is going to help you be clued into maybe why our children are engaging in that misbehavior. If you notice that repeatedly your child didn't have your attention and then after the behavior they had your attention, or your child didn't have something that they wanted and then afterward they did get that thing, that's going to cue you into what the desired outcome of the behavior is for your child. Once you know that, you have 2 jobs. The first is to teach them a better alternative. So if it's because they don't know how to ask for your attention, work on teaching them or giving them the words to use to get your attention. Hey, mommy, I need you, or can you come here, please? We start giving them these better tools for language, right? If your child is feeling disappointed because they didn't get something that they wanted and that's why they engaged in the misbehavior, what we need to teach them are some coping skills on how to handle the feeling of disappointment. What if it's deep breathing, whether it's going in your room when you're frustrated, having a moment by yourself, whatever it is, they have to sort of work through that feeling of disappointment. Don't take it away from them by giving them their desired outcome. And then the last step is to simply stop letting your kids' behavior pay off for them. Once you know what the desired outcome is of your child's behavior, stop allowing that outcome to happen when they engage in the misbehavior. Just like my water, when I pick it up and I don't get the desired outcome, I'm just gonna set it down and I'm not gonna pick it back up again. For our kids, we're giving them a better way to access whatever it is that they're trying to get, and we're no longer gonna allow that misbehavior to pay off for them with their desired outcome. So if you're in the habit of going and providing your attention when your child engages in misbehavior, maybe don't provide your attention at that time. If you're in the habit of giving in when your kid has a meltdown because you don't want to have to deal with the meltdown, don't give in. If your child is hitting because they don't want to have to go brush their teeth at night, make them go brush their teeth. So not only are we working on giving them better tools, but then we're also working on not allowing that misbehavior to pay off for them. And I hope that that helps our mom with the biting and the hitting, understanding a little bit more about why our kids are engaging in that misbehavior, and then having a targeted approach to how we're gonna deal with the behavior in an effective way. Because often when we say our kids are in trouble, if the behavior is continuing to happen over and over again, it's not the best consequence for your kids' misbehavior.